The cryogenic research station orbited Europa's frozen surface, a testament to humanity's desperate reach into the cosmos. David pressed his palm against the observation window, watching ice geysers erupt from the moon's fractured crust. He'd been stationed here for 8 months, studying the subsurface ocean that might harbor alien life. What he hadn't expected was to find a queen entombed in ice. The discovery came during a routine drilling operation. 3 kilometers beneath Europa's surface, the thermal probe had struck something that shouldn't exist, a chamber, perfectly preserved, containing a crystalline throne and upon it, a figure that defied explanation. Elsa wasn't human, though she wore a form that resembled one. Her skin held the translucent quality of glacial ice, veined with threads of luminescent blue that pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm. Her hair cascaded like frozen waterfalls, each strand a fiber-optic filament carrying information in patterns David's instruments couldn't decipher. She'd been sealed in stasis for what carbon dating suggested was over 2 million years. The expedition leader, Dr. Chen, had insisted on extreme caution. "We don't know what she is or what pathogens she might carry," she'd warned. But David had been assigned to the bioelectric monitoring team, tasked with studying the faint energy signatures emanating from the frozen queen's body. It happened during the 3rd day of analysis. David had been adjusting a sensor array near Elsa's stasis chamber when a microtremor, common on Europa, caused him to stumble forward. His bare hand, having slipped from his thermal glove during the fall, made contact with the crystalline surface of her prison. The reaction was instantaneous and violent. Light exploded through the ice, racing up David's arm in branching fractals. He felt his neurons firing in patterns they'd never known, information flooding his synapses faster than conscious thought could process. Images cascaded through his mind, vast civilizations of ice beings spanning galaxies, empires that rose and fell while Earth was still molten rock, and at the center of it all, a queen who'd chosen exile over watching her species fade into cosmic entropy. When David regained consciousness, he was in the medical bay. Dr. Chen stood over him, her expression caught between scientific fascination and raw terror. "She's awake," Chen said quietly, "and she's been asking for you." David's hand still tingled where he'd touched the ice. Something had changed in him at the molecular level. He could feel it. His cells vibrated at a frequency that hadn't existed before, resonating with something vast and ancient. Asking how, David managed to croak. "Through the quantum communications array. She somehow interfaced with our entire network. Every screen on the station displays the same message. Tell the human who touched me to prepare himself and come to my chamber." Prepare himself. The words carried weight beyond their simple meaning. David understood instinctively that Elsa wasn't threatening him. She was warning him. Whatever awaited in that chamber would fundamentally alter what he was. 3 hours later, wearing a full hazmat suit modified with the exotic sensors the research team had hastily assembled, David stood before the entrance to Elsa's chamber. The ice had melted, revealing a doorway carved from a substance that registered on no periodic table. Its atomic structure seemed to shift between states of matter, solid and liquid, and something else entirely. He stepped through. The chamber's interior defied Euclidean geometry. Walls curved in directions that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space, creating the unsettling impression of infinite depth contained within finite boundaries. At the center, seated upon her crystalline throne, Elsa waited. Her eyes opened as he approached, eyes like binary stars, twin points of intense luminosity that seemed to peer through him and into the quantum probability clouds that defined his existence. "You carry the warmth of a young species." Elsa's voice resonated directly in David's mind, bypassing auditory processing entirely. "Yet you reached out to touch entropy made flesh. Why?" David found his voice, though it seemed inadequate compared to her mode of communication. "It was an accident. I fell." There are no accidents in a universe governed by causality chains stretching back to the first quantum fluctuation. Elsa rose from her throne, and as she moved, reality seemed to accommodate her rather than the reverse. You touched me because some probability wave required collapse. You are here because your species has reached the threshold. What threshold? The moment when you must choose between remaining isolated in your warm little bubble of spacetime or stepping into the cold truth of what exists beyond. Elsa gestured, and the walls of the chamber became transparent, revealing not Europa's icy landscape, but something far more vast, a network of crystalline structures spanning the galaxy, each one a node in a civilization that operated on timescales measured in billions of years. My people transcended biological limitations eons before your sun ignited, Elsa continued. We became information encoded in ice, our consciousness distributed across quantum states within frozen matter. We watched the universe grow cold, patient as entropy performed its inexorable work. Why were you alone in that chamber? For the first time, something like emotion flickered across Elsa's crystalline features. I chose isolation to spare myself witnessing the final dissolution. My people have mostly sublimated now, ascending into probability itself. But you touched me, human. You brought warmth where I had resigned myself to cold. She moved closer, and David felt the temperature plummet. Ice crystals formed on his hazmat suit, creating fractal patterns that looked almost like writing. I summoned you here to offer a choice, Elsa said. Your species stands at a crossroads. You can continue your expansion through space using crude chemical rockets and fragile biological bodies, struggling against time and distance. Or you can learn what we learned, how to encode consciousness in ice, how to think at the speed of frozen light, how to become patient and eternal. You're asking us to stop being human. I'm asking you to survive the heat death that awaits all warm matter. Entropy wins, David. It always wins. But there are ways to dance in entropy's embrace rather than simply succumb to it. David looked down at his hands. The tingling had spread, and he could see crystalline structures forming beneath his skin, not invasive but integrative, his biology accepting something new. What did you do to me when I touched you? I planted a seed, the knowledge of transformation. You'll carry it back to your species, and they will have to decide whether to let it germinate or to remain forever warm, forever vulnerable, forever brief. Elsa reached out and placed her hand against David's chest. Through the hazmat suit, through his ribs, he felt her touch his heart, not stopping it but slowing it, teaching it a different rhythm. Go now, she whispered, but know that you are changed, and through you, perhaps your species will learn to embrace the cold. When David emerged from the chamber 6 hours later, the research team found him fundamentally altered. His body temperature had dropped 3 degrees. His neurons fired in quantum superposition, thinking in parallel threads. And in his eyes, Dr. Chen saw reflected the cold light of stars that would burn long after humanity's sun had faded. Elsa's gift and curse had been delivered. Now humanity would have to choose what to become.